style that both serve the mood, as Austin was saying, yet being readable like this and kind of pleasant to the eye.
Of course, if there's if there's a bevy of games that come out that are all brighter and more colorful, then gamers will start saying, "We want dark games. How about dark games?"
I think it's more of a comfort than a mood. You know, it's not so much that people don't like when it's dark as far as artistically. It's just that they struggle and they don't know where they're going, and that's it's a comfort. It's a comfort thing.
We spent a lot of money and exposed ourselves to great risk.
You know, we've mentioned a couple of times briefly some of your previous games, and you know, certainly working on Underworld Ascendant, we've been doing a lot of prior art survey like you do, and going back to Arx Fatalis certainly, and Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, which a lot of people I think don't remember. Just wondering if you can comment at all on your design process over the course of those games. You know, there's definitely some similarities in approach through the whole progression of them, but also you see a lot of things sort of maturing as you go.
Right.
Wondering, you know, what your insights on that are.
Yeah, and I think a company is like a person, right? It's it has its childhood, it's very difficult teenage to puberty moment, and then it becomes more mature and it knows what it's doing. So we've had exactly the same kind of thing. Our philosophy as far as design hasn't really changed much. You know, we always like this kind of thing. The approach to it, the methodology has changed, of course, because we used to spin our wheels on things that didn't matter, or you know, do systems that were really dirty, and then we would have too many of them in the game and we would not have the time to polish them. So I would say it's the producer part, the production part, that we've managed to mature a lot, so that now our processes are allows us to bring those kind of games, but in a timely manner and also in a way that is more polished and that can come together in a better way. But really, it's, you know, we're still the same philosophical approach anyway.
Oh, great. So you just put it all on me.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I mean, to be fair, it's hard on everybody because we were a very tiny company. We were only 4 people, and now we have a lot of people. So when you start and you have a strong culture of you think you know how to do things, and you grow this way, you know, at some point we were 50 people that were just chaotic and doing the things their way. And so from a producer standpoint, it was, of course, it was hard for the producer to bring this methodology, but it was also hard for the team to start using, you know, things like Handsoft or whatever.
Did you hear that, guys? He said Handsoft.
Oh, Chris has been on our case about Handsoft.
Sorry, guys.
No, I admit it. So, you know, it occurs to me though that, like, you know, not every studio do you really see the results in, you know, just like the, you know, from game to game, the kind of process of refinement that we're talking about. You know, not everybody learns from, you know, both their mistakes and their successes. I was wondering, like, do you have any kind of conscious, you know, approach that you go through to, you know, when you're wrapping up a project or starting a project to capitalize on your lessons learned and you know, figure out, you know, what are we going to do differently and better on this next project? Or
Of course, yeah. Well, you know, there are a few things. First of all, we don't have much turnover. It's rare that people leave us. So we have a team that is constantly growing, but the people that have been with us for a long time stay. So the culture is, you know, stays more and more. So that is knowledge that doesn't leave us. And two, yes, of course, we do the standard postmortems things, which they have their value, but at the same time, it's more like a venting moment for the team than anything. Because people when you do those postmortems, everybody looks at the world through their own prism, and so a little thing becomes huge in your mind, and so it's more like a venting thing than anything. But then we still do it, and sometimes we find some very very useful things, of course. So we change the things, we change our process, but also there is this thing we do constantly over and over. We every time we hire somebody new, or even during production, we remind the teams, and I did one of those speech to the team recently. We remind the teams how our process, even though it does look a little chaotic, is actually a process, and it's fine to throw away things. Because it's part of iteration, and it's fine to change direction, and as long as you change less and less over the course of the development, but you have to find what your game is. And I think this is the hardest thing in the games like our games, like, and assuming the world is in the same boat as we are, which is it's very very hard to know. You have of course you have a vague idea of where we're going, you have a goal, but you don't exactly know how you're going to go there, and you have all the elements, all the ingredients, and you try to fit them together, but there's a lot of, it's like a recipe. There's a lot of, hey, I'm going to change this thing, I'm going to change that thing. And so for people that are used to AAA games that are very linear and very well organized, because honestly there isn't that element of magic that we were talking about, then they sometimes freak out. They think we change too many things, etc. But it's part of our process. We believe that that's the way to reach that. And so basically what we do by those meetings is that we try to relax people about that, right? We try to give them comfort and reassure them that, guys, it's normal. What we're doing is it's our technique. And when I say that, by the way, it doesn't mean that we throw 80% of the things, but we probably throw away 20% of the things that we do. But for a lot of people, 20% is a lot, because if it falls on your work, then you feel like the entire game is changing all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I always thought that this kind of design process was far more like, what a band does making an album, right? You don't really know what it's going to be initially, right? It's the Beatles' White Album, but is it, like what's going to necessarily be on it? We're not sure yet.
Right.
Yeah, I think if game development is a recipe, then the most important step in the recipe is season to taste, right? Like
Right.
there's all these steps that you think are the at least the basics of what the game is that you're going to make, but ultimately the most important part is having a clear idea of what the tone of the game is, what the kind of emotional experience you want for the player, and the specifics of how you get there are going to change as you go. Yeah. And there's things that you can't know until you have some play experiences with earlier versions of the game, right?
Yeah, you can only judge the game in the context of all the systems being in together. It's very hard before that. Very very hard.
Yeah.
And I would say not only the systems but also the campaign, so that you can feel the pace and how it feels to go from level to level. Are you bored for a while, or is the story interesting? And that, to be honest, no matter of course our experience and the fact that we've worked in this industry for a while now helps us. So we probably make less mistake than we would have in the past.
Right.
But we know, we cannot write a Bible on paper and then that's it. People do it, and it just ships this way.
Yeah.
There's just no way we can do that.
No, there's a lot of things where before you can get to the point of saying what are we going to do, you have to go through some steps of like, how do we find out what we're going to do, You know, what are the questions and how do we answer them? Right.
Yep.
Was it different doing the designing levels on the DLC, right? Once you had a working system that you gotten sort of up and running.
Yeah, I think as usual, you know, when you do the things for the first time, it's the hardest, right? And if you redo it, it's suddenly you feel, wow, why did it take so much time in the first place? So, which, you know, that's part of the thing, is that a lot of it is research. So yes, of course, it went much faster. We had shortcuts in terms of production that, you know, we figured out on the way.
Right. Well, another thing about that, you know, thinking of from the point of view of a systems designer, right? When you have this development process where you know kind of the boundaries of what kind of game you might be making, but you don't know specifically the answer to a lot of questions until late in the process. You design systems for a certain amount of flexibility, right?
Right.
And you know, in that process, you end up with a system that can implement the game that you had in mind, in some sense. But inevitably, you end up with a system that includes more than that, right? It has potential that the original project hasn't tapped, right? And it seems like at that point, you know, the DLC practically writes itself in some cases, right? Like, just think about our experiences, like doing Thief 2 or doing Thief Gold, right? Like, so much of that was motivated by just like opportunities that we had discovered in the design process on the original Thief, right?
Totally.
That we could then tap, you know?
Yeah, because you now know exactly what your game is, whereas you only knew it towards the end, really. So it means that some of your content is slightly off compared to what you would have done if you knew from scratch.
Right.
And that's why, that's why in DLCs and sequels, usually you identify better what it is that works so well in the first one, and then you capitalize on that.
Right. Well, or for an even more general example, and this is a story that we've told before, right? But you know, after the original development of Thief, the core systems for Thief were flexible enough that the initial development of System Shock 2 was all like an unmodified Thief engine with this different data for quite some time there. There was, you know, eventually, obviously, like it had to fork, but the prototyping was all just done in the Thief engine.
Right.
Okay. Oh, this character is so tragically wrong. Sorry.
So just a reminder, we are OtherSide playing other games, and we have special guests, Raphael, I'm going to say your last name wrong. Colin Notro.
So let me.
Colin Antonio.
Yes.
There we go. and Austin Grossman. And
you know, every time I call some service, like whatever, some insurance or anything, and I give them my name on the phone, of course they never get it. So now I found, actually my girlfriend found the technique. I have to say Col Antonio, C-O-L Antonio, one word.
I will never forget it now.
And it works well.
Anton Sokolov has made a great study of my runes, but he's not special like you are. He wasn't chosen, and he doesn't wear.
So hey guys, it's Joe Fielder. I'm hopping in real quick. I just wanted to say hello and congrats on the release of your recent novel, Austin.
He searches old temples.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Tim and I both read it, Crooked. It's awesome. We both really enjoyed it a lot, and the audiobook was awesome because it had the it was voiced by the voice actor who played Comstock in BioShock Infinite. So I thought that was really cool. Kif Van Heuvel, is that?
Yeah, and I cast him without actually knowing that he had been in BioShock. I just cast him because he was awesome.
Yeah, he's very presidential delivery. So, I got a question for you guys. Is obviously both of our games have a lot of DNA from Looking Glass, and I know my answer for this, but what did you guys feel like was